I'm going to tell you how to get going on your plants investigation. One thing that you're going to need is your plants packet. We're not actually starting on the plants unit for a few more weeks, but we need to get our plants growing for our investigation. And so in order to do that, you're going to follow along here in pre-lesson activity 0.2 PT. That's the very first thing in your plants packet, and it has instructions for getting this investigation set up. So follow along here. In fact, please go through as you do each step and check it off in your checklist. I'm going to show you some of the steps here as well, so you have a video version of it, and that should be able to help you out a little bit. Inside of your kit, you probably right away noticed the mealworms. And the mealworms came inside of a cup, but actually there's a whole cup inside of a cup. And so if you pull the mealworms cup out, you should have another one. It might be larger than this. And inside that outside cup, there are some seeds, some radish seeds, maybe 3 or 4 radish seeds. The number you have may vary, and that's just fine. But for now, pour those radish seeds out. If you have a little dish, you can put them in. That's what I suggest, so you don't lose them. Okay, now that you have your cup, you can actually take the piece of tape off as well, so that that hole is exposed. And then we need to make this a good growing environment for your radishes. You're going to do that actually by taking your paper bag and tearing your paper bag apart. Well, you want one kind of larger size piece, and so try to pull apart kind of a single panel of your paper bag, so you have at least one piece that's kind of this big. Actually, you can even do a little bit more of a square shaped piece. It needs to be able to fit in your cup and then have a little bit of extra room up around the top. Then you can take maybe another strip that is the longer side of the bag. This is going to be used for making a wick, and so you can roll this one up into a tube. It doesn't have to be rolled into a tube as much as maybe just folding it over. Right away, you can take this and string it through. Through your hole so that you have approximately half of it on the inside, half of it on the outside. This is a really small cup, so I'm actually realizing I don't need too much of it here. I'm going to go so that it's just the wick comes mostly up into the cup, but not all the way. And then I also don't need too much hanging out here, so I'm actually going to tear a little bit off. So that looks about right to me. Your setup should be similar to this. Okay, you need to take some other pieces of your bag, crumple them up into wads, and put them in here. 2 or 3 of these will do just fine. Okay, and that first tube of paper, I kind of want to come up through the middle of those pieces of paper that I just balled up. So, I don't know how well you can see that there, but I have like the round rolled up pieces of paper, the balls of paper, but then I have that tube, that wick that I just made. It's coming kind of through the center there. So, that's good. And then finally, that first piece I had you make at the beginning, you're going to kind of shove that down on the top. And this is now the right environment for your seeds. There we go, that's pretty good. You might want to kind of make it flat down there, because one thing you don't want is when you put your seeds on there, you don't want them all to roll kind of to the same spot. You want them to be spread out around the top of here. And so I've tried to flatten this out a little bit so there's at least a couple different kind of pockets that the seeds can fit in. They don't just all roll down into the center into one place. Okay, once you have it set up like that, you're actually going to take it back apart because you need to weigh out how much of this paper that you used. I should mention that in your instructions it says paper towel. If you have brown paper towel and you think that's going to be easier to use, that would be just fine. These brown paper bags work really well. So with my scale, I'm going to turn it on without touching anything. Oh, by the way, this is a good note. If you have one of the scales that looks like this, there might be 2 lids on it. So if it's not working well, make sure you take off this lower lid that goes just around the metal part. That'll be helpful. Okay, but it's reading out 0 for me. If it's not reading out 0 for you, you can press this T button. That's for tear. That'll set it to 0. And then you want to press the M button until it shows that it's measuring in grams. G stands for grams, so make sure it's there. Measuring in grams. Okay, and like I said, then put your paper towel on top and mass the paper towel. I've got everything loaded up on there, 3.80 grams of dry paper towel. There's a spot for you to write that on your investigation worksheet, so make sure you record that. It also wants you to record the mass of the seeds. Make sure you record the mass of the seeds. And here's the thing, you can put them all on there at once. My scale didn't change, it still says 0.00 grams. And that's because they weigh so little, the scale can't even pick them up. So what you're gonna wanna write there for the seeds is you're gonna wanna write less than 0.01 grams. Because if they weighed 0.01 grams, it would show up on the scale. They must weigh something less than 0.01 grams. Okay, I have my seeds massed, I have the paper towel massed, I have my cup put back together. I'm actually gonna moisten it a little bit, so I'll be right back after I get a little bit wet. Okay, I just got the paper towel a little bit wet. That's gonna help me put the seeds where I want them to be on here. And then I'll go ahead, I'll add my seeds back in. And I've just set them in here so they're spread out a little bit on the paper towel. They're not all in the same spot, so they have some space to grow. Now, this setup goes, you're gonna have to find a dish, a bowl, or some other sort of dish that you can put water in. And you can place your radishes inside of the other bowl. And now you're gonna wanna fill this up with water. Not all the way to the top, you just need to put enough water in there that wick, that piece of paper towel that we pulled through the cup, is soaked in water. And you can just always leave enough water in there that wick is wet, but you don't want so much water that it just soaks the whole thing, soaks the radishes. If it's too wet, the radishes could get moldy, so be careful there. You want to just water with regular water. I know that in your kit, you got a vial that has some fertilizer water in it. However, we don't want to use this until later, until once the radishes have really gotten growing. Because if we use this too soon, it's going to promote mold, and that is something we want to avoid. Now this whole setup needs to go in some serious sunlight. So if you have a window sill that gets a lot of sunlight throughout the day, put it in that window sill. That'll be perfect. But if you don't have a window sill that gets a lot of light, then if you can, put it underneath a light. If you have a lamp or something. The trick is if you're trying to grow this under a lamp, you actually need to get the light source really close. If the light is particularly hot, you got to be careful there. Do not set your paper towel on fire. Okay, but if you really want your radishes to succeed, that light has to be pretty darn close to the surface of those radishes. So my best suggestion is to put it in the window where it'll get as much light as it can. Okay, I think that's everything. If you have any questions, make sure that you reach out to your teacher, whether that's me or Miss Swan, and good luck growing your radishes.